Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. Well, I want to talk to you about a whole bunch of things today, actually, so I'll get right into it. Cabin Fever 2. I don't know how much I can talk about without giving away any kind of spoilers about your role in the movie.
My massive, huge role.
Yeah, exactly. Anything interesting to share from the set of Cabin Fever 2?
Probably the most interesting part of my experience in Cabin Fever 2 was I showed up and, it starts right where the first movie left off with me sort of rotting in the water.
Right.
And so I showed up in February in North Carolina. It was freezing cold, and they threw me into this lake. It seemed like I was all worried about the temperature. Like, that was my big thing, is that I just didn't want to freeze to death. But then I noticed that there's, like, this guy walking across the lake, like, on the other side, like, looking around. And he looked like he was part of the crew, but he also didn't quite look like he fit in. And I finally asked him, I was like, so what's that guy doing? They're like, oh, that's our alligator wrangler. And sure enough, they had to remove, like, a little alligator before I went in there. So suddenly, like, the temperature was the least of my worries.
I can imagine.
Was terrified that I was going to get eaten while trying to film, all 5 minutes of my part in the movie.
Well, at least they were thoughtful enough to remove the alligator for you beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. At least it was a wrangler.
Absolutely.
But I love that nobody told me about this, until I was already in the water.
It sounds like a fun experience. Well, let's go back to the original film, which obviously you had a much bigger part in.
Yeah.
What was that filming experience like for you?
It was amazing. In retrospect, like, it only gets more amazing because, now that I've gotten older and worked on other low-budget films and other horror films, like, it was a magical sort of moment, I think, for all of us, the cast and Eli. Primarily, it felt like summer camp. Like, we all showed up. It was right after September 11th, actually, that we were filming it. And so we all, like, I was in college in New York, and I ended up taking the semester off to do the movie, and just to kind of get away from New York. And, we all showed up in this small town in North Carolina, not really knowing what to expect. We all loved the script, but, it's a tough movie in terms of tone. Like, some of us thought of it as like a straight over-the-top comedy. Some of us thought of it as like, a straight horror film. And really, all of those questions were answered in, Eli's personality, because he's sort of the embodiment of the tone of Cabin Fever. He's all over the place, and he's just, he's funny one minute, and then he's really into like this over-the-top gore, and he's ultimately just a great storyteller. And we had like a week of rehearsal before we started shooting where we just all hung out and became friends and had so much fun. And we knew then, like, okay, this is actually going to be not only a great experience, but a good film. And because you never know when you sign on to these little low-budget things, and especially at that time, I was only 21 years old. It's like, I came from squeaky clean sitcom world, like, what's this going to be? And it was a blast. It was just a lot of fun, and, those guys are friends for life. So.
Great. And speaking of Eli, obviously he's become a big name in the horror and the film industry. Did you know when you were filming it that he was maybe a cut above the norm, or is he different from other directors in that respect? Did you know he kind of had a big future ahead of him?
Yeah, definitely. The thing about Eli is, like, he's a really talented director, and I sort of knew that because I had auditioned with him and worked with him, and just seeing how much care and thought went into running the set and everything. But more than anything, it's just his personality. He's just got the biggest personality in the world, and, he's a huge attention grabber. And it really became apparent when the movie premiered at Toronto. And it was like, immediately sort of seen as Eli's stage. It was like he jumped up on stage, and it was like all of us actors were there, and it's like he grabs the mic and doesn't stop talking for like 45 minutes, and it's hysterical. He's just a funny, entertaining guy. And, he wasn't even originally supposed to be in Cabin Fever. He sort of jumped in last minute to replace an actor that he let go, and but you know, he has a great presence, and so we knew that like from that moment on, like okay, he's going to be, you know, putting himself out there, and he's going to become a sort of you know, he's going to become a famous personality in his own right, and sure enough, that's exactly what's happened, and now he's an actor, you know, which is so funny.
That's sure. Now, like you said, you've done a lot of horror films. Over the past few years, you've done a number of them. And I was curious, what's the appeal of the genre for you, and what you think it is that keeps the genre so popular, you know, all the time?
Well, you know, mostly the appeal of the genre is that they keep hiring me. And, no, you know, it's the thing about there's not much of an independent film world anymore. You know, there's not low-budget, like nobody's really making low-budget artsy films anymore. Nobody's making, you know, if there's going to be a low-budget film that is going to cast an actor like me,
right.
It's probably going to be a horror film. I mean, or a genre film of some kind. That's just the reality of the marketplace. And I think that's especially been true for the last, you know, well, since Cabin Fever, you know, because I think Cabin Fever was at the beginning of this era of the Saw films, and you know, where movies could be made for very cheap, and audiences would come out and they would get distribution, and so that's, you know, that's the world for actors like me who are not A-list actors, who are not getting offered, you know, starring roles in big films. That's our playground. I mean, those are the areas where we're going to be able to, you know, actually get paid to do something,
right.
and you know, and it's always been the way it is. I mean, you know, Johnny Depp's first role was in Nightmare on Elm Street. You know,
right.
I mean, everybody sort of starts in horror, and it's so funny. You know, now that I'm sort of getting out of it, I'm taking, you know, consciously taking steps away from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny to see younger actors, like, you know, that are in their 20s. That I meet, that, you know, that's where they're going. They're doing horror films. That's the only place you really they take chances on unknown actors, you know, because the way the market is now, you know, the small Sundancey movies, you know, they get actors like Tobey Maguire to star in those movies now, you know, because those are the movies that those actors want to do.
Yeah.
So they don't have to take a chance on a lesser known actor. So it's an interesting sort of marketplace. I mean, I think that, you know, I love horror films, and I especially loved them when I was doing Cabin Fever.
Right.
I'm a little sick of them now, but not, you know, just because, I mean, artistically, I want to do other kinds of things,
sure.
obviously, and, you know, but also I feel like we're a little oversaturated. We have been for a little while. So you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what's next in the sort of horror, you know, in the horror world. I'm curious to see what Eli's going to do next. You know, I don't know what his writing and directing projects are. I think he's sort of been wrapped up in acting for a little this last year. But, you know, it's going to take someone like like him, maybe someone new, or maybe him, to sort of get away from the torture porn and the you know, what's been dominating the horror movie market for a little while.